Greetings and salutations, my mates. Hellos, howdies, even, perhaps. As you guessed by the title, we are going to do a book review today. I'm very excited about this because 2025, my goal is to read a lot more. As you guys know, you may or may not know that I am an aspiring author. I'm really trying to work on that this year, as well as my reading, because you can't write if you can't read. My biggest problem is finishing books, because I have a tendency to get inspired, so I stop reading and I just kind of think in my brain, like, how can I write like this? So this year I'm trying to work on that, and I already accomplished that by finishing The Witcher: The Last Wish by, Sapkowski. He is a very talented writer. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I had started it 4 years ago, so we're gonna ignore that it took me that long to finish a 320-page book. We'll ignore that. I'm working on it, okay? And I already am starting another book, which I'll be reviewing soon. I'm almost done with it because I had also started that last summer. Also ignore that fact, but I want to start reviewing the books on the channel that I complete this year. So join me for this journey, my mates, and let's get into the reviewing of The Witcher. Now, the first Witcher book is a collection of short stories, as some of you may know. If you played the games, you probably would recognize a lot of these stories, because I think the games do a very good job at drawing from the books in that sense. The history, they really build upon the books, and there's a lot of mentions to some of these stories, particularly in The Witcher 1. We have the callback to the Striga fight, which is in this book, which is one of my... Well, I really like all the stories in it, but I did enjoy that one. I really loved Foltest in the book, which... We're going to dig at Netflix a little bit. Foltest is described as right here. So page 15. This is like one of the first stories in the book. Foltest was slim and had a too pretty face. He was under 40. The Witcher thought the king was sitting on a dwarf armchair carved from black wood. Now, yeah, he's supposed to be like how he is in the Witcher games. I think they did a lot better job nailing him other than this guy. Not my Foltest. Yeah, Foltest is a shitty guy, but at least Game of Thrones didn't make Jaime Lannister this fat, ugly guy, even though he did some similar things. But I really love that story because you're getting Geralt's perspective on things, and Foltest too, and just the whole deciding what to do with the Striga was very interesting, very well told. Of course, the Renfri story, which the show did a decent job of doing, I'll give them credit for that. That story is very good too, you know, Geralt being forced to make a choice. He talks about this choice throughout the games, you know, choosing a lesser evil. Choosing between a lesser of two evils is like not something he likes to do, and that story is really what, you know, formulates Geralt's outlook on that. So it's very well written, and that's something in the books that I think he nails super well, is just how Geralt is very neutral, and he's sort of a, you know, he doesn't want to make rash decisions, and that's what makes the last one, which is probably my favorite of them, definitely The Last Wish, the title of the book, where he meets Yennefer, and he kind of does some things that he's not necessarily normally does, making a rash decision and to, you know, wish to be with Yennefer. And now he kind of just really is attracted to her, and the way she's described is just, it's really awesome. Like, she's a badass, but she's cold and calculated, but she puts on this pretty face, and just the way it's done. Oh, and of course, probably one of my favorite passages from that chapter. He interrupted her with a kiss, an embrace, a touch, caresses, and then with everything, his whole being, his every thought, his only thought, everything, everything, everything. They broke the silence with sighs and the rustle of clothing strewn on the floor. They broke the silence very gently, lazily, and they were considerate and very thorough. They were caring and tender, and although neither quite knew what caring and tenderness were, they succeeded because they very much wanted to. And there were no hurry whatsoever. The whole world had ceased to exist for a brief moment, but to them it seemed like a whole eternity. Very beautiful writing. That's so much of this is just well written. Uh, I'm a sucker for romance, and Geralt and Yen's romance isn't necessarily something normal, and I think that's why I like it a lot. Because they were attracted to each other, obviously, but the wish kind of just made them like actually act on that in a way. Because I think they would have. I think that's the interesting areas to that. You're left with a lot of interpretation, which I like. Uh, Most of these you are left to your own interpretation. I would say the only thing I don't like is the main chapters, the actual numbered chapters, which kind of tell the cohesive story, because each chapter will mention something that happened, in the short story you just read, or the one to come next. Kind of like filling in the details, like Geralt's kind of remembering. So I do like it, but that's not necessarily my favorite style of storytelling, the jumping around constantly, but I think for this it works, and it's done well. Line, of course, everybody loves him. Everybody's favorite ladies' man who's very much in his emotions, unlike the show. Another dig, sorry. I can't help it. That thing is unfortunate, especially after reading this. I just really appreciate this, and it makes me appreciate the games a bit more, too, because they had held up these stories well, and maybe they took some liberties with, continuing off, but I think they honor the books pretty well when how they describe things. So I think if you like the games, you're definitely going to like the books, maybe even more so like I do. Usually the books are always better, which is also why I want to be more of a reader, because people say this about so many good series, and with the amount of poor adaptations coming out of books, another reason. But it's such a well-crafted world, it's super interesting. I saw somebody talking about how it was just made for TV, and it really feels like it. Like, it's so good. It's not too much of a slog to read. The language, it is a little difficult for some, maybe, and I think some translations are a little funky because it's translated from Polish. There's a couple things, but I'm able to kind of mentally correct those. I have like an autocorrect in my brain. Not to flex, but it's true. Like, if I see something, it might trip me up, but I quickly, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, this is what they meant, and just carry on like nothing happened. But it's really awesome. I can't wait to read the rest of the Witcher books. Putting The Witcher: The Last Wish on the mate rate, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. No perfect score, because I do think there's this, with that chapter set up, it's not my favorite. That loses some points for me. But it's a very well crafted story, and it's a great build up for this world that many of us recognize. And if you hadn't read the book, or played the games, or seen the show, and you just read the book, it's a very good intro into this world that you're about to immerse yourself in. So thank you, my mates, for watching. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you read this book, and let me know what books I should read next. Till next time, farewell, my mates.